if you phone a lead within 5 minutes of them filling out a form, they're 100 times more likely to convert than if you phone them even just 30 minutes after. For a business, if they could increase their likelihood of converting by 100x, that's a complete no-brainer for them. Yeah, that's like the kind of the problems and benefits and outcomes that I'm kind of pushing on when I'm selling these voice agents.
Today, we've got two Scottish accents battling against each other, so either listeners are going to absolutely hate this or absolutely love this. So we'll need to see in retrospect what people think or if they've understood the conversation, but try my best to be clear with how I talk.
Yeah, same. I'll try my best.
We were just talking beforehand, neither of us are technical individuals. We talked about the idea of like trying to learn how to code. I got personally 2 days into Code Academy and just gave up. I think you were a pretty similar story as well, right?
Yeah. Bought a course for a couple £100 and then just gave up after 2 days. I was like, nah, this is going to take me far too long to learn. I'm not doing that. So,
which is, I mean, super interesting, because I think something that terrifies people about AI specifically is that it's going to be a lot of technical jargon to learn. They're going to have to learn how to code. They're going to have to learn how to do a million different things. So before we get into kind of what you do, which is specifically AI agents, so voice agents and text agents, from what I understand, I want to take things back a second and maybe test your memory a wee bit. Do you remember the first time you heard about AI in general?
I do. It was, so I studied AI like in the last kind of 2 years of my uni degree, and I had this really, really good lecturer. His name was Victor Dorfler. He's like a really big academic in the space. Like he's published loads of papers, and in my third year class, he was talking about AI, he's talking about large language models, and he was kind of planting that seed in my mind of like, mate, that if this does what he says it's going to do, like that is going to be absolutely crazy. And then when we got into fourth year, we got to choose like your dissertation topic, and me and my mates like had his class in third year, and we came into fourth year and we said to him like, could we do something about AI? Like it seems as though this is going to blow up in the next couple of years. We want to like learn about it. And he was like, that's a brilliant idea. So he basically kind of put us on to my early onset of learning about AI and stuff like that. So probably back in 2020, but then it was only in, I think it was 2023 when kind of ChatGPT came into play that I actually started like using it rather than just learning about it.
With that, like that kind of fourth year project that you were doing around it, can you kind of expand on that and tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, so basically we did a group study trying to understand how AI was perceived in like the real business world, what are kind of misconceptions, and how people could properly implement it going into the future. So we did a big deep dive on like the history of AI and why it's, different. And then we basically went into different industries and asked them about their experience with AI, if they have any experience with AI. And then basically based on those interviews and our research, we conducted some conclusions about, okay, this is what AI is going to look like. This is how people are going to use it. This is why it's going to be useful. And it went really well. We won like a national award for it. It was like the highest graded dissertation in the last 5 years in the business department of Strathclyde. So yeah, it was good fun.
Wow. And was this the point that you kind of really became convinced that AI was the future, both for the world and for you as a business? Like at what point did the light kind of switch on? You were like, this is the area I'm going to go into. This is the future. This is where I see myself.
It didn't really click at that time, like what we concluded was that AI, like obviously when we spoke to people initially, the people who hadn't used it were like, yeah, the robots are going to take over the world. And we were just kind of like, well, we don't really think that's going to happen. But the people that had used it, all the conclusions that we were hearing was that AI is going to be like an ultimate assistant, which is what we're kind of seeing now with, the rise of agentic agents, even just ChatGPT itself. Like it's not going to replace people's jobs just yet, but it's like an absolute master assistant, the best assistant you're ever going to have. So that's kind of the conclusions that we got. But when I was doing it, I was like, oh, that would be really cool if that could do that. But it never really pushed me to go and learn about it, just probably because of the lack of technical knowledge. I was kind of like, if I really want to learn about this, then I need to go learn about, machine learning and coding. And I was just a bit like, ugh, I'm not really keen for that at the moment. But after uni, I started a different business, like a marketing agency, and I always kept my eye on like what was happening with AI. Like if I saw an AI video on YouTube, I'd watch it. There was a couple of like documentaries, and I'd just kind of like keep tabs on it. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was like, wow, I'm going to mess about with this. And I just kept using it until I got to a point where, I was like, I could actually provide some value for people with this. And then that's when my kind of entrepreneurial brain started clicking with the AI stuff.
Yeah, and you said that you were running a marketing agency. Assumedly, when ChatGPT came out, you were experimenting with that on a personal level. Did you then implement, do you remember the first time you actually used AI for a business process?
Yeah, so the first time that I used it was to write a contract or agreement for my business. So obviously I started it with two mates when I came out of uni, and we'd never written a business agreement / contract in our life. And I was like, mate, we can get this new thing called ChatGPT to write it for us. Watch this. It's so cool. Showed my boys and they're like, what the fuck? That is mad. But in terms of like our actual business itself, it was like a creative agency. So in the early times of ChatGPT, if you asked it to come up with like a video hook or like an ad hook, it was proper cringy and it wasn't really good enough to use in that respect. But in terms of like stuff that we didn't know, like law, contract writing, all that different type of stuff, like that was when I first started really seeing the value of it.
And then, so you've been running your current company, Future Flow, just now. Assumedly, from what I can see online, like the marketing agency was pretty successful. Why did you then switch over from what was tried and tested to what you're doing now? What was the inflection point where you're like, fuck it, I'm ready to make this jump and go to this new technology, even without the technical expertise?
It wasn't really like a clear-cut jump from one to the next. I left the other business at the start of 2024 just because it got to the point where I wasn't as passionate about it. Like, we started it with the goal in mind, like, we're three friends, we're starting a business, we're going to make money together and blah, blah, blah. But there was not like the kind of passion behind the actual vehicle that we were doing it with. Like, I wasn't pure passionate about creating good ads for e-com brands. Like, I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? And I had a conversation with my mates, and I was just like, look, this isn't really working for me anymore. We'll just go our separate ways. Like, you guys keep running it, and I'm gonna go try and do my own thing. And I was exploring, different options for probably around like 5 months. I wasn't doing nothing. I had a sales job. Like, I picked up a sales job with a packaging company, and I learned a lot about sales doing that, like face to face, almost door to door sales. And it was within that sales role that I started really exploring how I could use AI within the business that I'd just joined. And then as I started seeing the value of, showing it to them, the owner of that business was like, you could do this for other people as well. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So he opened me up to, potentially selling AI stuff. And then as it turns out, I kind of found my feet with it and then left that at the start of November. So I started my business and I was kind of doing it as a side hustle and then went full time with it in November. So there's a bit of a delay between stopping the marketing agency and coming into the AI space. But yeah, a lot of lessons in between as well, for sure.
I love it. I mean, we've got a lot of parallels as well. I worked in, before I got started in this as well, and like the AI space in general. I worked for Carphone Warehouse for a lot of years as well. Sales was like an integral part of that. I done sales in Australia for a while as well. And something that was really interesting, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of interesting people. And some of the kind of top experts that I speak to say that sales is going to be pretty much one of the most in-demand skill sets over the next couple of weeks. I want to dive into this with you, right? Because you do voice and text agents specifically, but assumedly the kind of goal for that is to get your salesperson as much talk time as possible, right? To qualify those leads, to get them through that so that your closer can come in human to human and close that. that sale as well. So it's a really interesting space that we're in, and I think it dispels a lot of myths about AI. Is that people believe that AI is going to come in, take their job, and it's just going to do everything. It's like, no, hopefully AI can automate the things that you don't want to do. I know that I personally don't want to go and find leads over LinkedIn and websites, do research, put them into CSV and send them an email campaign. The part that I enjoy the most about my job is podcasting or hopping on a sales call where I speak to another human being. If I could sit at a cafe or a restaurant all day and sit and speak to other human beings while AI runs my business in the background, that's a fucking no-brainer. I would do that. Enough of me being on a tangent. Let's bring things back to you, right? So you're working in this, they're selling, or you're working for this packaging company, you're doing a bit of sales, and like, you can replicate this for other companies. Give me the elevator pitch of what your business was when it started.
So when I was at the packaging company, I didn't really have much of a name in the packaging space, but I wanted to generate more leads. And my boss, who was the owner of the company, had, a decent following on LinkedIn. And I was saying to them, if you consistently posted on LinkedIn, connected with people, you could generate like more leads or like more warm leads, which I could then reach out to or phone and say, oh, I saw that you're connected with my boss on LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I can't be arsed posting on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, I can post for you if you want. So he was like, yeah, sure. So I started posting, obviously using ChatGPT. Then custom GPTs came out. So I built a custom GPT specifically for my director. Like, I used our like text conversations as context for how he speaks. I gave it context documents about the business and all our processes, our USPs, all that stuff. And then I started bashing out content on his LinkedIn, like 1 or 2 posts every single week, connected with loads of people. And then after about 2 weeks, he comes in and he's like, see the LinkedIn post? He's like, how the hell do you know so much about packaging? I wouldn't be able to write half of that. And I was like, well, I've got something to show you. And I showed him ChatGPT, and like, when I say he genuinely could not believe his eyes, like he could not believe his eyes. This is a guy that is extremely successful, ran multiple businesses. And when I showed him this, he like almost fell out of his seat, like genuinely. And then, that carried on. And a lot of his mates started like messaging him saying, who's writing your LinkedIn? Like, that's obviously not you. And then he was like, oh, it's this wee guy who's just started working for me. And then started putting me in contact with like these other business owners who I started creating custom GPTs for and kind of teaching them about AI. So that was like kind of the foundations of my AI business. But then when it came to actually like creating an offer which I would try and get out there with the LinkedIn ghostwriting AI stuff, it wasn't really like a tangible result. It wasn't, I couldn't say to people, if you do X, you'll get Y. Because it was like, you're writing content, you're kind of growing your audience, and that's going to get you leads at some point in the future, maybe. So then it got me really thinking, like, what sort of stuff could I do with AI that is going to provide someone with a real tangible outcome? Like, I can literally say, if you buy this off me, or if you use my service, you're going to save X amount. You're going to save X amount of time. You're going to make X amount more money. And then that led me to doing more research and like really keeping my finger on the pulse with AI. And then in July, I came across the voice agents, and then my mind started going. I was like, this is it. This is the one. This is what I've been waiting for. And then, yeah, kind of just jumped all over it.
So, assumedly, on the opposite side of things from the clients, the biggest problem they're facing is they're not getting enough kind of qualified leads in. Am I understanding that correctly? Is there more nuance to that? What is the biggest problem that your clients face that you're solving for?
It's different kind of problems, right? So if we can kind of separate the problems in between like an inbound assistant and an outbound assistant. So the problems that an inbound assistant would solve is for, small to medium sized businesses. I think on average, they miss about 37% of their inbound calls, which is a lot of money if you use that over the whole year. So in terms of inbound assistance, that's helping companies never let any potential customer or lead like slip through the cracks. And it gives them that 24/7 availability that, every consumer is pretty much expecting nowadays. And then on the outbound side of things, it's more about kind of speed to lead. So being able to engage with your customers as quickly as possible to catch them at that point where they've just filled out the form where they've said they're interested, and then you phone them like 3 minutes later being like, oh, hey, it's Matt from Future Flow. I just saw you filled out a form. Like, what can I help you with? And then booking them in. So I think there's a stat that I always repeat and repeat and repeat when I'm on sales calls. And I'm like, it's if you phone a lead within 5 minutes of them filling out a form, they're 100 times more likely to convert than if you phone them even just 30 minutes after. So if you can imagine, like, for a business, if they could increase their likelihood of converting by 100x, that's a complete no-brainer for them. Yeah, that's like the kind of the problems and benefits and outcomes that I'm kind of pushing on when I'm selling these voice agents, I guess.
I love that. That makes total sense. Let's break down both of them, right? So Outbound's the most interesting to me. So let's break down Outbound first. I come to you, Liam Lawson, and I sell lollipops. And I come to you and I'm like, people are going to be getting in touch with me, and I want to increase my speed to lead. How are you going to increase my speed to lead? And where do you implement AI? Like, where does AI come into that conversation as well? Because assumedly someone fills out a form and you want me to phone them 5 minutes after, and I'm a busy business owner or a busy salesperson. How do I get notified of that? Where's AI in this? Talk me through the process.
There's a lot of automation platforms out there already, like Make.com, Zapier. You have things like GoHighLevel, where if someone comes into your ecosystem, whether they fill out a form, they're being at a webinar, or however they've come into your ecosystem, they've given you their details, that would then enter that person into some sort of automation or flow, right? So in that flow, we would create a module or certain webhook which can allow you to make a call with an AI agent. So say, for example, the AI agent phones and the person doesn't answer, that would then be recorded. So it'd send a message to the automation platform to say the call wasn't answered. So then that person would then follow down the automation platform and potentially get another phone call or get a text or get an email or whatever. If the person did answer the phone, then the AI would be speaking to that person. And within the AI, you can create things called tools, which allows the voice agent to actually perform and execute actions or tasks while it's on the phone. So a really easy one to describe is an appointment scheduler. So if you phone someone, the AI is talking to someone and the AI says, sounds like you're interested. They go through the questions, the qualifying questions, and then it says, would you like to book in for an appointment? The person goes, yeah, sure. So then the AI takes their date and time, and then in the instructions for the agent, you would say, once you have confirmed the date and time of this person, then use the tool to send a message to an automation platform, which would then book that person in. And then, it sends it. You can actually see it. Like if you're testing it and you're speaking to the agent and you kind of give the date and time and you know that you've set up the script right, you can go into the automation platform and see, okay, now it's running, and you can see it go through the wee modules, and then it goes and then it sends the message back. It's quite cool. But then also additionally, for the voice agents, you get what we call end of call reports. So if you have a CRM with leads and you want to update, what happened to that lead? What did they speak about? Did they give any specific details, like what service they were interested in? You can basically extract those pieces of information and then update them into the CRM. Yeah, the voice agent has a lot of capability in terms of on call and then also after call. And I think the after call stuff is just as important because people like the fact that, this AI can book appointments and whatever else, but business owners want to know what's happening in their business, what's happened with that lead. And then with the end of call report, they can see that without, having to go and ask a human, and the human's like, oh, I can't remember what they said or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's really reliable, it's really accurate, and it's really cool to see, to be honest.
Yeah, you sound enthusiastic about it, which I love as well. Like you remind me of Connor Joss as well. Like he's just a ball of excitement anytime you're on a call, which I love. Mate. You got a big smile on your face right now for anyone that's only listening to audio.
Oh yeah, Connor Joss, he's a good guy. I like him.
He's hard not to like.
For sure.
With this, like what you're describing is you're eliminating the mundane, right? I've done ad sales for AI Tool Report, and my least favorite part of the job was coordinating over email. And then, especially once you get off a 30-minute sales call and having to be switched on for 30 minutes and be able to answer people's objections, be able to sell to them, be able to engage in the conversation, you're exhausted. And the last thing you really want to do is send a follow-up email with all the details that you've just spoke about. It's time consuming, it's difficult, it takes your brain power away, whereas the majority of your brain power as a salesperson should be on those sales calls, right? And another thing as well, kind of what you mentioned there, anyone within operations or in the C-suite or maybe the CEO themselves wants to be able to see what's happening. I think it's Peter Drucker, the famous management consultant, that said this, that what gets measured gets managed. If you can't see the results of this, you can't see people's common objections, you can't draw threads through, you can't understand people's problems because you're relying on the memory of a human, which is not a reliable thing, right? We've learned that through a million different things. You can't rely on the memory of a human. I want to bring things back to specifically the agents themselves. I get two questions. One, how good actually are the voice agents? Like, are they good at understanding the flow of a conversation? And have you seen them kind of progress over time? Like, are they getting better and better all the time? And two, this is a bit of a niche question, but can you determine an accent beforehand? Can you choose an accent that the agent speaks to customers with? And if so, what accent do you choose for your agents?
To answer like the first half of one and two at the same time, you can choose any accent, honestly. Like, I've built agents where there's a Scottish accent. It's hilarious. There's Aussie accents. There's English Italian accents. So it's like, yes, can I get like, it's stupid, but it's so good. It is absolutely hilarious. So yeah, you can get a lot of voices. I will say it's predominantly English. So anyone who might be listening to this who's looking to build, different language agents, it's not impossible, but there is less variety in the voices that you can choose from. And for the second half of question one, which was how good are they at following the conversation, it's really all down to the person that's prompting the agent. Because you could, for example, if I gave a beginner a very, basic prompt structure. So the way it normally goes is you go like role, task, and then specifics or steps. So you're giving it who it is, what it's doing, and then what it should be doing at each step in the conversation. So like, how should the conversation flow? But the thing with voice agents is that conversations can go in weird tangents, like we're probably finding out right now. So in order to kind of, what's the word? Account for that or manage that, you need to be very skilled at prompting, especially for voice, and kind of have a very broad view of how that specific conversation can go. So you need to literally put in the prompt how to manage objections, how to handle the conversation if it goes sideways, what sort of rebuttals do you need to say, what are the specific steps, and like when I say steps, like really granular, like establish the reason for the call, find out, why it is, dig deeper into the pain points or the benefits or the interest that they were doing, then transition into trying to put them in for a call. But if you run into objections, go to this next step to handle those. Like, it can get quite complicated. But once you get a good kind of understanding of how you should structure your prompts and you've tested them a lot, they can get to a stage where you can still tell it's AI, but for a business owner who would listen to that, they'd be like, wow, if that can do like 90% as good as a human can for a tenth of the cost, I'm going to go with the AI,
Got you. Talk to me about that. So maybe you might not be able to reveal specific information because you're under some sort of privacy clause, but what sort of businesses do you work with and who's kind of seen the biggest benefit from working with yourself?
Because I'm quite young in my business, most of my projects have been like small to medium-sized businesses. So in the UK, you have like trades businesses, so like bathroom companies and different roofers and stuff like that. There's also dental clinics, which I've worked with. I've worked with, a charity before, doing like Outbound, like taking donations from their database. Like that was quite a cool use case. But majority is like inbound stuff. So making sure that businesses aren't missing any phone calls or potential leads. And that's a really easy setup, especially if, businesses don't even have their own CRMs. I can literally connect up the voice agent to a Google Sheet that they can see on their phone. So it's kind of, it's very malleable for loads of different sizes of businesses.
Got you. And the team just now, is it just yourself or do you have other people on board?
So that is the thing. And I think you asked a question in the kind of questionnaire before this podcast. It was like, what sort of things did you want to kind of highlight? And one of the things that I said was like, leverage is key. So when I first started my business, I was obviously building all the voice agents myself, doing the automations and, seeing some success with that, but a lot of my time invested in that. And then over time, as you're in communities and stuff, you're speaking to other agency owners in a similar space to you, or even just guys who just prefer doing the development side of things. So like just building automations. And I've kind of built up a network of subcontractors. So not so much employees, but really, really good subcontractors that I know they can do the work exactly what I'm looking for. So I've essentially got a team, but they're not, future flow employees. It's like all subcontractors have their own business, but yeah, that's how I'm kind of building my business at the moment anyway.
I love that. I mean, I think the importance of the word and of the concept of leverage has never been more important. Just yesterday, I spoke to Eric Jorgensen, who wrote the book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. That came out 4 years ago now, and it's made from tweets from 7 years ago, where Naval was predicting this exact future that we're in, where leverage is the most important thing. And Eric's a huge proponent of that as well, is that you can put in, the traditional concept of work. My mum was a primary head school teacher and my dad was a sales engineer. And the result of your work was always direct. I do 20 hours of work, I get X amount back. I do 40 hours of work, I get Y amount back, and so on and so on and so on. Whereas now with this concept of leverage, you can actually employ AI so that you write one blog post and that's distributed into 3 different LinkedIn posts, which lead to 5 calls, which leads to 10 or 3 sales accounts closed. And then from those 3 sales accounts closed, you actually have AI on those calls as well, which takes that transcripts and then generates more content. So we've never been able to kind of leverage more. And I think it's interesting that you say that you work with subcontractors as well, right? And you work with subject matter experts, right? For you, it's probably not worth the time hiring a person and trying to train them up, and they might be mediocre at what they do. You just try a subcontractor that's great at what they do, and then you get that exact process exactly the way you want it. And I think this is the way the AI space is heading in general, in that like mediocrity is no longer acceptable, right? Because AI can do a mediocre job at coding, it can do a mediocre job at writing, it can do a mediocre job at writing LinkedIn posts. So you really want kind of experts in each individual space that have that grander vision, that are ideas people, and they can have AI do the things underneath them. And I really want to touch on that with you, because what I find super interesting is you work with the technical side of things, but you're not particularly like technical yourself. Talk to me about that. Do you face some imposter syndrome? Like, how does that work? How do you conceptualize things?
For sure. A lot of imposter syndrome at times, especially when I get asked questions sometimes on calls. I'm just like, oh, I think we can do that. I'll need to talk to my team about that. But yeah, obviously in the beginning, I thought if I'm starting an AI agency, I can't be a complete mug and not know anything. So I started off, I had a lot of experience with prompting in terms of like ChatGPT and doing the kind of ghostwriting stuff and custom GPTs and stuff. So when it came to prompting the voice agents, which is a technical skill in itself, I'll have I'm good at that. But when it came to like doing the back end automation, so like sending the tools or doing the end of call reports, that was quite a steep learning curve for me. That's probably what kind of held me back for the first couple months, to be honest. Like, I wasn't really confident in, my level of that skill to then sell it to someone else, which kind of put me onto the subcontracting thing. Because the thing about leverage is I hold leverage because I can generate leads, right? And if I go to a subcontractor who's really good at what he's doing, but is completely useless if he can't generate any business to like implement those skills. So therefore, I'm bringing him something that he wants, and then he's bringing me something that I want, and then we can provide value to someone who's looking for what we're providing, So when it comes to the technical side of things, I mostly just do like voice agent prompting. I've kind of spent most of my time really like getting really, really good at that, and then just passing off the more coding and automation stuff to more capable people, put it that way.
Got you. Yeah, I'm a similar process myself as well. There's a definite limit to my expertise. We're lucky we've got a very, very handsome Dutch man on our team called Melvin that handles the more technical side of things. So it's very lucky for us to be able to have him on board. Although you might not have like a really technical understanding of how the platforms work, can you talk me through maybe the tech stack that you're using to perform your business?
Mm-hmm. So I predominantly use Vapi AI as my voice agent builder. And for those who haven't used any voice agent platforms before, essentially they're called orchestration layers. And the reason they're called that is just because Vapi itself just provides almost like the skeleton. And then it's made up of loads of different other things. So, you have ChatGPT in there, which generates the responses. You have a different transcriber in there called Nova. You then have the voice, which I use 11 Labs. So it's like Vapi is just kind of this layer that sits there that allows you to bring all these things together. And then in terms of automations, I started off with make.com as there was the most, that was the platform that there was most YouTube videos on. But as I've kind of gotten further into my AI journey, I realized that any N8N is a much better platform in my eyes. It's a lot cheaper and it's more kind of developer friendly. But because, I have my developer friends, there's a lot more that, I can offer as a business on N8N compared to make.com. You really don't need much else. All the other tech stack kind of gets bolted on to those. So for example, I use GoHighLevel for my own business, like my own CRM, but I can also create sub accounts within GoHighLevel to offer my service to other businesses who don't have GoHighLevel. So I guess you could say GoHighLevel would be my third one. And then obviously I use like the different LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude to help me create automations or help me do other stuff in my business.
If, for example, I decided I wanted to quit my job, get rid of this, and I wanted to come work for you, and you had 3 months to train me up as quick as possible to make me the best employee possible to help your business grow as much as possible, what would you train me up on? What YouTube resources would you put me on? What podcasts would I listen to? What skills would you want me to learn? Like, what areas of expertise would you want me to focus on? This is apart from reading the AI report, of course, or listening to the podcast.
Of course, of course. Funny you say that because literally at the end of last week, I had a young boy from Strathclyde, the university that me and Liam both went to, message me asking for a call because he was really interested in AI. And on the call towards the end, he started getting a bit nervy and he was like, "Oh, I wanted to ask you a question. Can I work for you for free?" And I was like, "I guess so. I don't know what it would take me more time to teach you anything that I'm doing, but I'm sure I can find something." And basically what I told him was, if I was to bring someone new into my business, I would want them to learn a different skill than what I'm an expert in, because, you want your team together to be stronger rather than us being too, weighted on the voice agent side of things. So I said to him, you should start learning about how to build chatbots, because then if you had expertise in chatbots and I had expertise in voice agents, we'd be stronger together. So I suggested for him to go and learn the N8N platform. I gave him a couple of YouTubers to watch. And what else is he doing? That's it, really. Learn the chatbots, because I can do the voice agent side of things. And then the N8N automation side, probably, yeah. Sorry, I answered that not very well, but...
No, you're answering it in realistic terms, right? You're not giving me a hypothetical answer. You're answering it in a way that makes sense for you. And it sounds like you know what your business is just now. You've got clients, you've seen success with it, and you're obviously thinking towards the future as well, because you're like, if I were to hire someone new, here's what I'd want them to teach so we could work together. What's your plans for 2025? Where do you see the business at the end of the year, or maybe the start of 2026?
There's obviously lots of opportunity in small to medium-sized business, right? But I came across an opportunity a couple of weeks ago after doing like a live webinar class. And essentially, it was a client who was looking to implement a voice agent phone system, but on an enterprise level. So for a business that had, locations across 2 different states in America, and they wanted to have, a unified phone system which leveraged multiple different agents. So if you phone one number, that has an agent which can then route you to the right agent for whatever request that you have. And in terms of obviously monetary value, creating enterprise level systems like that is way more lucrative for myself, and also just a lot more interesting. So with that opportunity, I'm hoping to get my hands dirty with an enterprise level solution, create a case study, and then start to, put word out to similar organizations like that to, sell higher ticket voice agent systems, as well as, still doing the smaller stuff to keep myself afloat.
I mean, from personal experience, usually clients with more money and a bigger budget are the easiest to work with. They know if you can provide them the results, then they're going to be less nitpicky on exactly how that system works, as long as you can provide them the results. And they're always the easiest. If I'm selling an ad for 4K, those clients are a million times easier than the same client I'm selling an ad for 1.5K. They're a lot more nitpicky, a lot more annoying, because they understand business. They've been around for a longer time. They know how this works, and they don't need to be as controlling over it. So it sounds like you're moving in the right direction, and it's probably going to be a weight off your back to work with kind of larger enterprise clients as well, I imagine.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how it goes.
Let's take things out a second. I'm just kind of curious. I'm curious from a personal level. When you explain your job or what you do to like family and friends, how do you explain it to them, and do they understand what the fuck you're talking about?
So when they say, what do you do? I just say, okay, I run an AI automation agency. Next question, what does that mean? My reply, have you ever used ChatGPT? Yes. I basically create customized ChatGPTs that can speak to people on the phone or on text message, and then integrate them within your business so that they can, send emails for you or speak to customers for you. That's the most simplistic way that I can say it to someone. And if they haven't used ChatGPT before, then I don't even know if I waste my time trying to explain it to them.
What would you say is the percentage of people that you speak to have used ChatGPT or have not used ChatGPT in your experience?
It's getting larger, but I think anyone over the age of 40, I'd probably say it's at about maybe 10 or 20% that use it. Anyone under 40, like anyone under 30, it's usually about 80 or 90%. Between 30 and 40, it's probably about 40 or 50%. They're like, oh yeah, my friend keeps talking about that they use it to write their emails or something, but I never used it before. I'm just like, you need to get on it. You need to get on it. But yeah, that's probably, the older they get, the less, and the younger they get, the more, for sure.
Got you. Let's round things off with a bit of advice from yourself, maybe. If someone is new to AI, they're maybe not technical like ourselves, and they're looking to maybe get into AI in general, or specifically learn about voice agents and text agents and how to work with these different platforms, what direction would you point them in? I want you to keep in mind maybe like the pitfalls that you went through. So if you were going to do this again, what would you avoid and what would you focus on the most?
So I've actually had this question twice in the last week by 2 different people who I'm kind of close with, and they're saying, I saw you're doing AI, like I want to learn about AI, what should I do? And with AI, I think one of the core skills is prompting, whether it's voice agents, whether it's chatbots, whether it's just creating back-end automations. When you're using AI, you need to understand how to prompt. So my best piece of advice, the best place to start is go on YouTube, find like the most liked videos about AI prompting, whether it's ChatGPT or it's Claude, and really get to grips with, how to actually communicate with the AI in a way that you're going to get your desired result. So understand that context is king, like giving the AI as much context as possible in a really granular way is the best. Like, for example, if I'm trying to think of a situation, if I'm creating a voice agent, that's where my head goes. I need to give the AI as much context about my business and who these people are that I'm phoning and why I'm phoning them and why it's valuable, why what I'm selling them is valuable and how it's going to change their life. All those things contribute to creating a better output when you prompt any sort of AI, whether it's the voice agent, whether it's just ChatGPT itself. So yeah, first step is definitely learn how to prompt. And when I say learn, I don't mean spend bloody months learning and being like, yes, now I'm a master. Just like spend like maybe a week or two, watch some videos, test it out, create an imaginary use case that you want to build something for and just do it. And then over time, you'll just get used to asking it questions. And when you start to ask it more questions, you get used to, what responses you get. And then, it's like anything. Over time, you just get better with reps. So yeah, first place I'd start is prompting. And then if I was to get in the AI automation space, I would probably learn about like automation platforms like make.com or NAN. So how you can actually implement AI in different places. So if you wanted to implement, ChatGPT in messaging, or you wanted to create like a chatbot for WhatsApp or text message or email, you can do that through these automation platforms. So that would probably be my first two steps. We'll leave it at two. Two is nice and concise.
Awesome. If people want to hear step number 3 or learn more from you or talk to you, how do they go about getting in contact?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post 5 days a week. So I'm always open to having a conversation on there. Probably just LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best place for me to contact, like business wise. I won't give people my phone number on the podcast. But yeah, LinkedIn probably.
Your information is safe with us. But yeah, Matt, I want to thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. It's been interesting to learn a bit more about voice and text agents. I don't think we've ever done an episode specifically on this, so I hope people get a lot of value out of it, and I'm sure that they will. So I appreciate your time.
Hopefully, yeah. Thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully we can do this again at some point in the future. Once I've got all my enterprise clients, we can talk about that.
There we are. You'll love to see it.